Today, I'm very happy to speak with Dell, President and COO of Freeman. We're going to be talking about people, about culture, about technology, and about what Freeman sees with the data they currently have about the future of our industry. Enjoy my conversation with Janet. Hello, and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meeting podcast. Today, I'm absolutely delighted to speak with one of the great leaders in our industry. Her agenda is probably more complicated than the President of the United States, so I'm extremely happy to talk to her today. Janet Dell, she's the President and COO of Freeman Company. Janet, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
It's great to speak with you. Obviously, with your role, you have such a view on our industry. But before we get into that, as I always ask my guests, can you tell us a little bit about your story and how you get into this industry? What is your journey?
Sure. Well, I've been asking myself that a lot this last year. I actually had a degree in finance and investment banking coming out of college and went into some financial modeling type businesses, consulting businesses around how to create more value in organizations. But we use technology tools in order to do it. And that job and the jobs that I had led me to Marsh & McLennan, where I spent 18 years of the majority of my career. And I came in after 9/11 because they had been hit very hard by the World Trade Center. Yeah. And it had wiped out their claims operations, and they needed to transform what had been a paper business into a technology-enabled business, but also to help get a performing team that had a long track record of history through a lot of change. And there was a lot of turmoil going on, obviously. So I came in and worked with a small division in Marsh that focused on risk and technology. And my passion is around transformation and people development. So I kept taking jobs and was offered roles that focused on transformation and helping high-performing teams get to the next level. Yeah. And adapt to a digital world. So I did that for a long time and worked a lot in growth. At Marsh, I worked across the global organization on what are the right ways to grow organically across the business, and again, use technology along with, married that with great growth strategies, and we had top talent there definitely across the business, and that helped us outpace our growth. Then I went to my final role there was back in that technology division I had started with and helping to figure out its next horizon of growth and what was best for that business. And it became clear that business needed to sell and become part of something bigger in the technology space, which it did. And I'm happy to see it being successful today. And that's when I said, I'm mid-career and what should I do next? And a recruiter called me to talk to me about Freeman, who I'd never heard of. And shockingly, you see all these events and things that had gone on, and I couldn't believe such a large company, maybe because it's family owned and privately held, was out there that I didn't know about, especially being at Marsh because we deal with some of the largest companies. But came in and they wanted to do some digital transformation and just some growth strategies and things. I came in as the chief growth officer, and then one thing led to another, and now I'm here as the president and CFO.
That's wonderful. Are you already involved with in the board with MPI and other associations?
I am. That's been exciting. Actually, MPI has been excellent because it's helping me learn. It's hard. Many of the people in this industry have been in this industry for life, and I do believe it has to be in your blood. It's addicting, but for those who it's not addicting, they probably get out early. But MPI has been awesome in their communities that they've been building and exposing me to meeting planners and their objectives and things so we can better align Freeman.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You've been talking about, technology, digital transformation. Obviously, the pandemic has been a huge wake-up call for the world and for our industry. Yes. Now, digital obviously is here to stay more than ever. But what will change, but also what will not change, you think, in a post-pandemic meetings world?
Well, one thing that really drew me to Freeman was that their mission statement around we connect people in meaningful ways. We will create moments that matter. And I believe in the human connection. I mentioned people are my passion. So digital is here to stay. It's a great enabler, but there's nothing that replaces face-to-face human interaction. It's why I think we're all so sad and have been struggling through the last year. And that's not just our industry, that's just people at large. They need to connect. And you get too far behind these screens and you lose that. And dialogue disintegrates and other things happen where live events will always come to play. Human connection will always have a need. How that manifests, though, can change. So we learned in digital, which saved us, frankly, during the pandemic, so that we could still connect in this industry and any industry. But in particular for live events or any event, digital really enabled on-demand learning, which is fantastic. We saw excellent engagement on that front. When we surveyed our millions of exhibitors, attendees, organizers, brand marketers that we survey regularly to understand what's working and what isn't throughout the pandemic, networking and commerce did not get the job done online. So yes, we're all working on features that can help in online platforms, but we recognize there's just nothing that replaces that within live. But digital also enabled opening up and including so many more people in events. It's almost like the funnel into the live event. Yes. And we're trying to be more inclusive everywhere in this industry, in all industries. So it opened up such a world of opportunity. And I was so happy for our customers who, they're worried about their own growth strategies. And this is one way to ensure, like an MPI or others, ongoing membership and what the value is of these organizations and what they bring. And then coming to the live event, you can get a whole nother experience out of it. But we also learned with digital that it's just as much work, if not more, to put on a digital event as a live event. Does it make sense to do these two at the same time or pace them, and have them at different times throughout the year? All kinds of experimentation this last year around all these topics. So it's cool. We're seeing people try all kinds of things. And as we learn about best practices, we really try to push that out through our content and how we advise clients and prospects.
Awesome. So if I understand well what you say, so what will not change is the importance for networking, for trade shows and commerce. And what is changing is basically, well, as you said, it's the funnel to the live event, and also broadening the scope of who people can reach, right?
Yes, it's so much more inclusive. And I think take like a product launch or a proprietary event. There's only so many people that can get to that event. And oftentimes, there's a global audience that can be reached. And this opens the door to people participating in some way and learning about these products and becoming huge fans, et cetera. And then when it's possible, they can attend the event. On the buyer side or the event organizer side, it's great because everyone that comes to that live event is highly motivated. They know what they're there for, et cetera. So even like right now, events are smaller for a number of reasons. But our event organizers are happy with who is attending because they're very focused and they know what they want. And they're buyers, typically they're decision makers that are showing up. Whereas this funnel of digital online participants, these are people coming up, or maybe they are buyers too. It could be a number of things, but it just expands the breadth of who you're connecting with, which isn't that ultimately the goal, is to expand your audience, whether it's online or live. So I think that's been awesome.
Great. You mentioned all the people you're surveying from, customers, partners, vendors, everything. And so I would like to, first of all, mention that we're recording this on the 17th of August. So, when it comes to prediction, but with all the data you have and all the survey you have, what do you see, I would say, for the last quarter of the year? And where do you see some, I would not say back to normal, I don't believe in that, but a new kind of normality coming back in 22 or 23? What should we expect there?
Yeah. Well, first I'll explain kind of how we've gone about this. And when the shows started to cancel in Asia in January, APAC, and then EMEA kind
Yeah.
of mid-February, and then North America really started to hit in March of 2020. And we have customers in all these markets. I think all of us thought at that point, well, we're going to go into this lockdown, and then in 3-4 months, we're all going to emerge. I don't know why that was kind of a prevailing thought at the time, is that we would get to summer for some reason, and then we wouldn't have these impacts. But of course, none of us knew, what was going to come. And about end of April, beginning of May, we said, well, we need to get a handle on what's going on. And our customers like, what's going on? So we thought we have this huge data set because we serve millions of attendees and exhibitors and brand marketers and organizers, et cetera. And we needed to sit down, and we were going to send out sentiment studies every 4 to 6 weeks to understand what was on their mind, what they were feeling, what they needed to do. At the same time, we are all beholden to governments and regulations and what was going on. So we were looking at CDC and WHO information, and we were looking at tracking on virus and hospitalizations, county and state and country and travel, hotels. But our customers, we said, okay, what do you think is going to happen in the next year? And we tracked their sentiment, how comfortable they were coming back, what they needed in place to be able to return to live. When would corporate travel restrictions lift? When would things open up? So we shared that. We were like, okay, this is too important to the survival of the whole industry. We need to put that information out for everybody throughout. And we've always had this strategy and data research practice that was little known, to be honest, that we used individually with certain clients. But we opened that up at Freeman, and it helped a lot, because then we kind of got some crowdsourcing, whether it was the venue, the whole ecosystem helped validate kind of what was happening. And that's why we knew early things are going to start to happen in spring, this past spring. We're going to start to see events start to return. And on a small scale, we knew they would be more regional, and then they would start to open up. And we could tell in what parts of the country things would open up. Then Delta variant, this last one, like, can this industry catch a break, right? But the big difference right now from when we started was we all had to lock down to begin with, because we didn't have a way to fight, and manage the hospitalizations and bed space. But now we do. We have vaccinations.
Yep.
And our exhibitors, as soon as the presence of the vaccine was known, and right after the US election, you saw the sentiment bounce up, and it got stronger and stronger. And when you saw distribution plans in EMEA, in APAC, in North America, sentiment was getting better and better. And then, but when Delta was introduced, both in EMEA and the US, and the vaccine rates started to plateau, then you're starting to see organizers say, wait a second, because they have to think about that. They've got to think about their audience. We have to think about the health and safety of our employees, our partners, et cetera, which is why Freeman has said we really have to push on vaccination for the health and safety of our own company, our own partners, certainly to put our customers at ease. Yeah. So what we're seeing in the research now is that we see corporate travel restrictions continuing to be released. People are willing to come back to events if they feel like they're safe, whether that's a vaccine requirement, a testing requirement, a masking, some combination, or vaccine only, whatever. And it's really on an event by event basis. So it's even more important for us to communicate constantly. And we're doing, we typically do thousands of events with each customer. They have different needs. Unsurprisingly, some industry sectors are willing to come back sooner than others. So we know the medical conferences, the giant medical conferences, they'll probably be one of the last to return, because these people are working through this pandemic, through it. And we're having small events in that space, but they're almost 100% vaccinated. Like, that's because they are the front line going out there. On the manufacturing front, where it's so important to be with the physical product and talk to experts and things. These people are coming back, or construction, or gamesmanship, things like that. They're coming back. You just saw the Field of Dreams last week. We were thrilled at that, right? An outdoor venue, but people coming in vaccinated, etc. Awesome. So it really differs. Mm-hmm. Things are coming back. Sports, I thought, by the way, did a great job on saying we have to stay connected to our fans, but we're going to have to either distance, or they might have an empty stadium, but the game's televised. We might have some visitors, more visitors, etc. It's the same across all these industries. So exhibitors say they're like 90, sorry, I've got to check my numbers here. 91% of exhibitors plan to return to in-person after the new year. That's a lot. But remember, we're still doing live. We've been doing live all year, smaller amounts. So there are plenty, like 75% say they'll come back this fall. And we have insane demand coming in for orders and things on the events that are taking place. So it really depends how comfortable, but it all ties back to health and safety. Do I feel safe and secure? That's our number one downloaded content, is how do I exhibit safely, engage with my attendees safely? And we have checklists and advice, and then we work with the venues and get CDC and WHO guidance on that work.
The 91% after January, that's great. That's very exciting. My personal take on it is I believe we'll reach a point where we'll have herd immunity, but more importantly, we're going to live like, the vaccine against the flu was invented, I don't know how many years, but we still get the flu. So we're going to get vaccine for COVID as well.
I say the same time, like, we're going to have to learn to live with this. We can't close the economies forever, right? So, we have tools with vaccination, and we understand these things much more, what we have to do in terms of health and safety. But I think in what we saw, we're watching the trend lines in Europe. The Delta variant comes up in spikes, and then it falls off. And we have no reason to believe it will be any different in the US, but everyone's got to do their part. The faster we get to herd immunity, the better it is for everybody, whether you're in this industry or any industry, really, because people moving around. So I think, to me, I have never felt better during this pandemic as now, even with Delta being out there. So I feel like we've been through the worst, and we're seeing the events happen, and we all understand so much more now. That the events are going to happen. We might have some starts and stops here in the fall, but the recovery is upon us. I mean, I truly believe that right now with what I know on August 17th. I feel
yes, absolutely. Yeah, to your point, I'm monitoring a lot as well from EMEA, because I have family. The accent is from Belgium, so I have family there. And by the way, I have great friends who are doctors. And I know that all my friends on Facebook, after being expert in geopolitics, are now expert in health and expert in COVID, which, so I'm just talking to my friends who are doctors and say, what do you think?
Right. Well, I come from a family of doctors, and they're the same thing. I'm like, what do you think? But, it's hard for people because there's a lot of conflicting information out there. Yes. And that's really the challenge. So I'm like, this isn't a political issue. But in some ways, it's become one, which is unfortunate, because we all want to get back to normality. Normalcy as fast as we can. We don't want to be closed out in our homes like this. But I think everyone's working towards that, some form of that.
But that's great to hear about those numbers as data and the sentiment. So that's wonderful. Janet, you were saying at the beginning that you're a people person, which is fantastic. I truly believe that success of any companies is culture and people.
Yes.
And in this world coming up now, on one hand, we have a shortage of talent. Everybody's complaining they don't have enough talent. And on the other hand, and I see it with my team and the company I'm leading now, they enjoy being with the family. They enjoy being with their children at home. We're looking at probably bringing them 3 days a week, something like that. How do you see in the next 5 years, with everything we've been through the last 18 months, how do you see hiring and retaining talent for any business leader?
Well, I think you're spot on that it's easier to retain talent when you have a great culture and the people feel connected to the purpose and the mission of the company, and like their work matters and it's fulfilling. on some level. And I have found in this industry, which I didn't know a lot about coming in, everybody feels very passionately about connecting people and the work that they do. And it's hard work at times because we are time certain. Like the event is going to happen on a certain day and we can't just delay and push and you know that. I'm like, the show has to go on. And so that can lead to it's can be tough at times because it's date certain. But every industry has some component like that. To me, I'm like, one, I think we need to do more education on what this industry is and the incredible return and reward that comes from this type of work and being part of it. Like you saw at MPI, some of our teams have been on the road for 20 days, but we're ecstatic and thrilled to see that event come off. They are passionate about what they do. They love their customers. They want to see them do well. And they've got each other's back because you need to be a strong team to pull off a live event. As you've learned, this is not for the faint of heart. That's what I've learned, certainly. So I think we got to do education and do a better job explaining what this industry is beyond just within the industry. Because I think there's lots of great content and organizations that help educate within the industry, but to make people aware. Then I think we've got to think about ways to enable some work-life balance where, you could be on for, like at Freeman, you may be on the road for a 20-day stretch because of move in, move out, the show, et cetera. And then we have to give people rest so that they can recharge. And that's the rub when you're doing so many events like we are. And we're trying to work on that. And it's hard work to build an infrastructure that supports that and ways that we can look, we are looking at all kinds of new distributed workforces. And we've all learned in the last year, you can do that. We can run a company in a distributed format, which is great because I'd always come from that. And that was newer in this space to me, or at least where I was sitting. They were not as used to that. And everybody's embraced it, risen to the occasion. And you find out when people can control their day more, they are even more committed to the organization. The more flexibility you give them, the more committed they are to the team. At least that's what I found here. So I think we've got to do a good job helping also break down work and responsibilities. I'm thinking in Freeman in particular, so that people can do the things that they love, but also get some balance. They need to have a life outside and a support network outside, but also build a strong one internally where they can raise their hand if they need help within the organization and work across. On the culture front, that's one of the things that drew me to Freeman. I come from a military background or military family on my mother and father's side. And Freeman operates like that, where they're like the no man left behind, or I've got you, I've got your back, and we'll figure it out. And they're great at heroics, right? When something changes on site and they got to figure it out. But they really have a culture of gratitude, which is key. And because it's an unforgiving type work, but we need to have a level of gratitude and appreciation, and then be able to enjoy the things that we take part in creating with our clients. That is the draw, I think, for our teams and certainly for myself. I'm like, this is amazing when you see like consumer electronics pulled off. You're like, how on earth did that happen? And we're so happy to be a part of it.
Absolutely. I'm listening to you. I don't think that many people realize in your role the amount of responsibilities for people. And I was listening to you. It remind me of a journalist who was interviewing Jack Welch when he was at the helm of GE. Yes. And he said, Mr. Welch, with all your responsibilities, how you sleep at night? And he said, like a baby. I wake up every 3 hours and start screaming.
I haven't heard that one. That's great. Well, maybe I can identify with him sometime during the pandemic.
So you're a big fan of technology. Obviously, you explained that to us. The company I'm leading right now here in the Americas actually is a Swiss company that's behind the Euro for the ticketing, the platform, the SaaS solution.
Nice.
The reason I'm mentioning it is about 1 million tickets that were distributed, obviously mobile, they were all distributed through blockchain. And if you would have said 2 years ago that this will be a big change in blockchain, people say, nah, it's going to take years, which obviously the pandemic accelerate. What type of technology are you seeing is going to transform the meetings and event industry, and what should we be watching in the next 2-3 years?
That's a good one. I mean, I think the pandemic, I read some stats at a recent board meeting around 75% of US companies have expedited their digital transformations as a result of the pandemic. And frankly, like even my parents from the silent generation, ordering online and things that they never using QR codes, things that they would never, just give me the paper menu, do this, do that. Everybody had to adopt across this multi-generational workforce and world, frankly. And so I think that shocked people because there was another stat, and we made 7 years of progress in a period of 8 months, right? Like what it took Netflix to grow over 10 years, Disney Plus did in 6 months during the pandemic. And why I love technology is it enables people to do even better, to do even more. That will always need people, but technology can take away some of the rote task work or millions of phone calls and emails we can just cut straight through in a Slack channel to get to the people that we need. I won't be so bold as to predict which technologies will be next because it's evolving so rapidly, right? But I think the things that connect people and simplify our lives are going to be natural adoption tools that'll be out there. And we know we've got Gen Z coming up. Millennials are 60% of our buyers. They're all digital natives, right? And whereas myself, Gen X and boomers, et cetera, we're digital hybrids. So this is all that they know in terms of connecting, communicating, engaging, even though they still want person-to-person engagement. So we all have to adapt because I'm like, they are coming up. They're a bigger generation than the baby boomers. And you saw millions of baby boomers retire during the pandemic as well. So I think community type tools, community building tools, certainly we saw lots around content because we needed to get content out throughout. So in the live event space, tools like that are going to only help make the events industry even better and connect even further with people. And then, fintech, I don't have to tell you, if you're talking about blockchain, we got to make it easier for people to pay and do business with us. They don't want to wait in those. I tell this all the time to our teams, like, they don't want to wait in line. They want you to help them at their booth and they want to be able to text someone. And that's what they're used to in these generations coming up. Doesn't mean we're not going to still have service center desks and different things for people to go up if they want to talk in person to someone. But we're going to also have to have a parallel set of tools where people can self-serve. So a no-touch to low-touch service models because people want to do it themselves when they want to do it. Yep. And that's a big shift, or at least it feels that way. Sometimes we're talking to some of our colleagues and clients.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. I've seen that you've been recently ranked number 1 in the Forbes Best Employers for Women in the list and the business service and supply category, and number 4 amongst all the companies. And it's very personal because as a father of 3 daughters, a proud father of 3 amazing young ladies, I wanted to ask you, how do you achieve that performance, and what can we learn from your experience and from Freeman experience to truly have 50% of the gender of the world included?
Yeah. Well, I think I showed up just in time. Freeman has been working on this for over a decade, this was a nice recognition, especially in a year like this. But this Freeman set up about 10 years ago. Don Rep, our chief counsel, helped lead a group called Forward. And it basically started with just raising awareness around how, we were far off from the goal, or Freeman was far off from the goal that they wanted. And they started mentorship programs and education within the company to start thinking about it when we're hiring and how we're mentoring and why, if we saw 2.3 million women drop out of the workforce in the pandemic.
Wow.
Like, why is that happening? Because we can't offer them the support networks that honestly, that pained me a lot because this is important to me personally and in my own life. Like we had to be able to figure this out. If caregiving responsibilities are lopsided on one gender, then you're right. Of course, the mother's going to pick the child over some of these things, but can we find ways to meet in the middle? And I think Freeman's worked very hard at that. Where we still have a lot of work to do, and this isn't unique to Freeman, is around diversity in this industry and in many. Yeah. And so we've got to, we want to apply what we learned in Forward to another grassroots type group. We call it IDEA. It's inclusion, diversity, equity, and action. But you can't just have the grassroots. The leaders at the top have to sponsor and say, you're right, we're going to do this, we're going to measure it, we're going to hold ourselves accountable, which is what they did in the gender-based thing. And we have a lot of work to do on diversity everywhere in this industry, everywhere. I came from financial services, another area. It's all, I say this at Freeman, all industries have this problem right now. We all need to be focused on it. And if anything we put our minds to, we can definitely do. So I hope that we do this much faster. We've discussed it. We actually have a great opportunity right now because many of the companies in this space had to shutter down or furlough throughout this. And now we're all doing a lot of hiring. And we have an opportunity to make, again, 10 years of progress in a short period of time. Yeah. We just think about it, right? We're just looking for equal opportunity. I say this all the time. We just need a level playing field, and then let the chips fall where they may, and people create their own paths. It's ultimately up to the individual. But I hope to see great progress on the diversity front next.
Fantastic. So in a few years, I'll tell my daughters to apply to work with you.
No, absolutely. Yeah. You've got to set up internship programs.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another one. Yeah.
For sure.
Janet, I know you're extremely busy. So again, I would like to thank you so much for taking the time speaking with me. And one last question, if I may.
Yeah.
That's from a friend of mine, Jason Gaignard, who created a fantastic community called MMT, Mastermind Talk, and a lot of entrepreneurs that were there. The favorite question, quite frankly, when we meet face to face in 1 year from now with a bottle of champagne, what are we going to be celebrating?
We will be celebrating the safe and healthy return of live events. It won't be in a year, though. It'll be sooner. I feel convinced on that. But that to me, and that this, I think people are going to come out of this and find out, we can withstand anything. There literally is nothing we can't do. I tell that to our teams every day. I'm like, just the fact that you showed up today, I'm like, you're still going. Don't give up. We're going to get through it. And they are. And you're seeing it right now. And I think they'll be thrilled and they can't believe how much change has already come to the industry, but it's going to look different. And it'll be exciting and it'll still be fun in a great new way. And we will reach even broader audiences. And there's a place for everybody in that. So I'm excited about it. I'm still excited about it. I still need to take naps sometimes, get hydrated, but because the pandemic is exhausting. We all know that. But yes. I think we're getting there. We're close.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Janet, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me today. Very insightful conversation. Thank you for that. Look forward to the exciting future that is in front of us. If you want to connect with me, please go on LinkedIn or join my Facebook group on www.evenbusinessformula.com/group. Thank you. Have a great day.